Dear class 6, we'll continue chapter number 3, that is force. Uh, we could not finish the chapter in the last session because the chapter is too long. But today we'll obviously finish up the chapter because we are almost towards the end of the chapter. That is methods of increasing friction. Okay, methods of increasing friction. What is friction that we discussed in the last session? Let me tell you once again. So it is a force formed between the surfaces in contact. All right, so that is called your friction, and this friction is said to be a necessary evil. Okay, it is said to be a necessary evil. Why it is? Because this friction in some cases we need, in some cases we do not need it. Sometimes this friction helps a lot that we require to execute the work, to do the work. If there is no friction, which is this, and the work is not possible. But in some cases this friction is something which brings about a lot of hardships in our work. Okay, which brings about a lot of problems in our work. Okay, so that causes a lot of damages in our day-to-day life also. That means in some cases we need it, in some cases we don't need it. So accordingly we have got the methods. Wherever we need, there we can increase it, and wherever we don't need it, we can decrease it. So there are the methods for both the purposes. Okay, so here particularly we'll talk about methods of increasing friction and methods of decreasing friction. Okay, so that way we can make use of this science in our day-to-day life. Okay, as far as this friction is concerned. All right, so first we'll talk about methods of increasing friction. How can we increase friction? All right, so that mainly we talk about today in this session. Number one, we have these groups are made in the tires of vehicles to increase friction and prevent skidding. Okay, groups, GROOVES, groups. Groups means you can see the roughness on the tire, the designed roughness you see being made on the tires of vehicle. This is to increase the friction between the tires of the vehicles and the road. Why? Because if the friction is less between the tires of a vehicle or bicycle, whichever it is, and the road, if the friction is less, then what may happen is that the vehicles might skid, especially during the rainy season when the road is very slippery. Okay, when the the road is wet, so that time the friction may be very less. Consequently, the tires may be skidding, prevents skidding. Okay, so that way this is very much helpful. Okay, the friction in this case is very much helpful. So we need to increase there that way. Okay, not only there in the tires of vehicles, but also there in the shoes also. The shoes which you wear. So there also you see the soles which are grouped. They are also made very rough so that there is increased friction between the road and your shoes so that you do not fall off. Okay, so that way we can increase the friction. Second one is that spikes are provided in the shoes of players and athletes to increase friction and prevent slipping. See here, even the football players you see, athletes you see. Okay, so all the players, all the sportsmen you see, so their shoes which they wear, okay, are provided with the spikes. Okay, are provided with the spikes so that that spikes can have a very good grip with the ground, which means there is very good friction between the ground and the shoes they wear, so that they can run fast, they can play well there without being fallen off or slipping there in the ground. So that way here in this case the spikes play very important role to increase the friction there in the ground, there in the game they play. So there you find the increased friction being formed between the shoes they wear and the ground, so that they can perform very well out there, which in fact prevents slipping there in the ground. Okay, so that way it is very much important. You can see the shoes they wear, they are all provided with the spikes out here. All right, so that way they can increase the friction out here. Okay, so that we do not fall off there in the ground. And number 3, we have machine belts are made of special material to increase friction and drive machine wheels properly. So there are many machines. There are a number of machines where the belts are used. Machine belts are used, like in the case of floor mills. Okay, floor mills. The floor mills means the factory where the place where or the factory where the floor is made out of the wheat. Okay, out of the wheat. The wheat is taken there in the factory and it is ground, and that flour is made, which we use for making chapatis and all. So how it is made? It is made by grinding them there in the there in the flour mills where the machine belts are used. What is there? Machine belts are there. These machine belts rotate around the wheel of the machine. Okay, wheel of the machine, it rotates, so that the belts, that machine belts drive machine wheels there, and the things can be done. That means the wheat can be ground into the flour. Okay, that means that machine belts, when it rotates on the wheel of the machine, then what happens is that that belts drive machine wheels there, so that that your flour can be made, okay, by grinding the wheat out there. So in this case also, you see the friction is there between the belts and the wheel of the machine. All right, so there is friction because it rotates on it. Okay, so if the this your machine belt is very smooth, okay, it's very smooth, then what may happen is that there will be less friction between the machine belt and the wheel of the machine. Okay, so that during the time of rotation out there around the that your wheel, what may happen is that your machine belts can come out of the wheel. Okay, so that it cannot function properly. But these machine belts are made of special material with lot of dotted structures there, which make these belts very rough, which means the roughness of the machine belts increase the friction there, so that this machine works properly. Okay, so here also we find the increased friction between these machine belts and the machine wheels function very properly there. It's all because of the increased friction. So that way the friction can be increased. So the friction here in this case increases mainly because of the roughness of the machine belts. All right, if the machine belt is smooth, then anytime this machine belts can come out of the wheel and it will not function properly. Similarly, you can find this belt even there in the fan belt, there in the vehicles, and in many other areas you can see the use of the belt where it is very rough, so that the friction you find being increased between that belt and the wheels. Okay, so this is how we can increase the friction there wherever we need it more. See methods of decreasing friction. So in many areas you find the friction causing problem. When there is more friction, we find the works not being done well, okay, because of the high friction there. So in those areas we need to decrease friction. So how can we decrease friction? There are some methods given out here. Number 1, friction can be reduced by applying lubricants. Lubricants means something which makes the rubbing surfaces slippery or smooth, so that less friction is there, like oil, grease, something like that, to the rubbing surface. That is, friction can be reduced by applying lubricants to the rubbing surface. There are many machines where their parts inside rub on each other. Alright, when they rub on each other, there will be a lot of friction between them. Alright, so if we don't care about it, if we don't make it smooth by applying oil and grease or oil or grease, then what happens is that over the course of time those rubbing surfaces get damaged. Alright, and the efficiency of the work cannot be achieved. Alright, then also the longevity of the machine also cannot be achieved. Then very soon we need to replace the machine. Okay, so that what we can do there is that we can apply such lubricants like oil or grease, so that the rubbing machine or rubbing surfaces will have less friction there, and the works can be easily done and very smoothly without any problem. And also that way the longevity of the machine also increases. Okay, and also the efficiency of the work also can be achieved, and this is how we can maintain the machine also. All right, so that way what we can do is that here we can reduce the friction, and we can do the work with less effort very easily. So that is one method. Second, friction can be reduced by using ball bearings in machine. Ball bearings in machine. This is usually seen in the motorcycles. All right, then in the vehicles we see the use of ball bearings. Okay, what ball bearings actually are? You see here, this is in the book, it is given there, ball bearings. All right, so this ball bearing is the device used in the machine, consists of the two metal rings, in between of which there you find the your steel balls. In between of these two your metal rings, there are many steel balls. All right, when it rotates, that time what happens is that a lot of friction is formed in between this. So in order to reduce this friction, there you find the ball, the metal balls, the steel balls, you find a lot of many metal balls you find being used in between this, so that when it rotates, okay, there is less friction. So how we can use this? Where do we use this? You might be questioning yourself. You might be confused there. You see, this is used there in the wheels of the vehicles or the wheels of the bicycles. You see here, this is the hole where the axle is there, wheel and axle. Okay, afterwards we need to go through the machine in physics itself. So there we see wheel and axle. So through this hole, the axle is fitted. All right, then the wheel has to rotate on the axle. All right, so if this ball bearing is not there, then what happens there is that the rim of the wheel, or let us say wheel itself, rotates around the that your axle, where lot of friction will be there. Consequently, the vehicle cannot run. Okay, it cannot run because lot of friction is there. So this increased friction does not allow the wheel move properly. So in order to reduce the friction, this ball bearing is used out here. Ball bearing is kept in between the axle and the rim of the wheel, so that when the wheel has to rotate around the axle, there is what is there in between, the ball bearing is there, reducing the friction. So that way the vehicle can easily run smoothly, run on the road. Okay, this is also one of the devices, okay, to reduce the friction. So that ball bearing is one of the very important devices being used there in the wheels of the vehicle. All right, so other one is that Friction can be reduced by using wheels to move objects. There are many heavy objects, like you see suitcase, okay, heavy suitcase. Some other heavy loads are also there which cannot be carried easily. Okay, it cannot be easily dragged also because it is very heavy. So in the bottom of those suitcases and the luggages, or let us say the loads, many wheels are provided. Many wheels are fitted there so that it can be easily pulled. It can be easily pulled or pushed because there in the bottom, what are there? The wheels are there which rotates on the surfaces. Okay, so why that wheels are there? If the wheels are not there, then the bare bottom of the suitcases or the luggages will have high friction with the surfaces. So in order to reduce this, what we have used out there, we have used the wheels. So when the wheels are used, then obviously it can easily or smoothly rotate out there and friction is reduced and it can be easily pulled or pushed without the heavy force to be applied there. Okay, so this way we can reduce the friction and decrease the friction so that we can make our work easy. The fourth one is there. Friction can be reduced by streamlining. See here, streamlining, streamlining, streamlining. If you can't understand this, you can refer to the book also. So friction can be reduced by streamlining the body of the moving objects. So streamlining means like this frontal part. Okay, so frontal part like that pointed. Okay, frontal part like this pointed. So when the frontal part, which part actually is moving, so those regions, those portions of the objects can be made pointed like that so that it can have the less friction with the air or whatever it is outside or other side in the opposite direction, because whenever we move forward there is always friction from the opposite direction which always pushes backwards. Okay, which always pushes us backwards so that we get fatigued very fast like that. So in the same way, if the objects are simple without having this kind of pointed figure in front, then it becomes very difficult to move it there. But if we have the frontal portions like that, which is pointed like this, then it can easily cut the the friction from the opposite direction and it can be moved very easily. So this kind of figure or shape is called streamlining. You see the body shape of the birds. Okay, so their frontal part is pointed. Even you see the frontal portion of the fishes, you see, so like that it has got. Okay, so this type figure, all right, so this type of figure you see is called streamlining. So they can easily swim there in the water. So in the same way, you see the boat you see there in the vehicle, I mean there in the oceans and wherever you see the boats used, they all are made in such pattern only. You see the helicopters, they are all made in such pattern. So that shape of the body is called streamlining shape, which is actually to reduce the friction there so that they can move forward very easily. So these are some of the methods we have to decrease the friction. Alright, so these are the methods of increasing and decreasing friction. Now limiting friction. The last point of this entire chapter is your limiting friction. Limiting friction means what actually is. See, suppose something is there kept on the table. Let us say this is there on the table. Alright, and when you see here, the surface of this duster and the surface of my palm, or let us say this to be a table. Okay, surface of this table and the surface of this duster are in contact there, and there is friction. Okay, static friction is there. All right. So when you want to move this, Okay, when you want to move this with this small force that you apply, okay, it cannot move. Suppose let us say it doesn't move because the force which you are applying is very less, so you cannot move. You try to increase slightly there, still it is not moving. Why? Because the force is, I mean the frictional force, okay, the force in the opposite direction to oppose my force is also increasing. But the question is there, does the frictional force out here keep on increasing? Okay, the question is there, does it increase, indefinitely there? The answer is no. Okay, it's not that. It has got a limit there. To some extent, it can increase. Okay, the friction can be increased out here, but after the certain limit, okay, the friction doesn't, increase there. So when you apply the more force there, then it will move. Otherwise, the things would not be moving anywhere. If the things are just kept on the table or anywhere, if you want to move it, it cannot be moved if the frictional force also keeps on increasing in the opposite direction. But it doesn't happen so, because that frictional force also has got its limit. So that limit of the friction is called limiting friction, which means here the maximum value of the friction, maximum, how much it can go up to. Okay, how much it can go up to, what point, what limit it can go. All right, so that maximum value of the friction that can occur between two surfaces is called limiting friction. That means the maximum up to which level, up to which limit it can go, then it doesn't go further. So that maximum limit of the frictional force is called, limiting friction, because it has got the limit. Beyond that, it doesn't go. Otherwise, nothing can be done, nothing can be moved. Okay, but it doesn't happen so, because it has got a limit. So that limit beyond which the friction cannot go is called, your limiting friction. So this is all about your chapter number 3. So today I have told you before only that we wanted to finish up. We finish it also. So this is the last portion of this chapter. So before I end up this session, I just want to give you the work that you do at home. See, page number 58 of your book. Page number 58 of your book. There is A. Okay, multiple choice. Multiple choice is there. Then page 59. Then page 59 we have B. Fill in the blanks. Then match the column. Match the column. Then true or false. True or false. Okay, you please try to solve these answers from your book itself. Okay, please copy them all. Okay, write in your copy, try to get the answers of all this from the chapter itself, or you can just refer to the video also. And afterwards I'll check in between, if school resumes, I'll check your copy itself. Otherwise, in between I'll send the answers or the corrected answers or the corrected these questions through your WhatsApp. All right, please do this homework. All right, so thank you very much.